Good evening. I'm Abby Phillip here with a special edition of NewsNight. This summer, we're taking the show on some field trips, spending our days right here at the Food Network's Test Kitchen in New York. They're our sister company. And we, of course, have a fabulous chef serving friends of the show, and she has a special treat for us at the end of tonight's show. But first, with the midterm elections now a little more than 4 months away, President Trump is taking his new political message out for a spin, and he's conjuring up a familiar boogeyman.
These are not social democrats. These are hardcore, godless communists. They're godless communists. All communists are godless. They don't believe in God. This is the most serious threat to our country since its existence, in my opinion, 250 years ago. This is a major threat to our country.
Trump was making that pitch to Christian conservatives at the Faith and Freedom Coalition earlier today, just days after New York's primary elections, where we saw 3 self-proclaimed Democratic socialists win their races. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani endorsed all 3 of them. And if Trump's message there wasn't clear enough for you, here is a little bit more of what we might expect to hear from now until Election Day.
It's happening right now in New York and California. But you'll start living in squalor. You'll live in squalor. There will be no food. There will be no housing. There will be no military. There will be no law and order. There will be no nothing. There will be no nothing. You'll be a third world inhabitant in every way, and everyone will suffer or die. You'll suffer or die. That's what happens.
So from socialism now to communism, Josh, I wonder what you think of the risk, actually, for Democrats in handing the Republicans a message like that.
I don't think that they're handing the Republicans a message. The Democrats know what they're going to do. They're going to run that message where they can run it, and across the country where they can't run it, they're not going to run it. President Trump's going into this midterms with a significant advantage because of his performance, right? And we see him do this. He's just going to kind of like replace the caravan scare that he does at every midterm with the DSA, right? But I don't think it's going to work when you have gas prices as high as they are. I don't think it's going to work when you have Mamdani showing people that he can fill potholes with that same socialism that Donald Trump is trying to scare people out of engaging with.
I also think it hasn't really worked that well. I mean, they've been claiming that they would run Mamdani is a socialist and Democrats are socialist ads all over the country. And I don't know that it's really changed the dynamic in the special elections that we've seen thus far. And certainly not Trump's relationship with Mamdani. He has embraced him practically at the White House.
He has, and vice versa with Mamdani. I mean, he's been 2 times, I think. And frankly, I've watched the president treat Mamdani better than I've watched him treat members of his own party, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie.
That is actually true.
And I think that, on a personal note there, I think the president likes that Mamdani is a New Yorker. And I think in a weird way, he has respect for how hard it is to win the New York City mayor's race. And he respects him as a showman and the way he practices politics. Funny enough, the president views AOC in a similar way. He always says she's like Evita. It is true, right? She's the young, shining face of socialism. Eva Peron, right? I'm one of you. Look at me. You can see yourself in me. But the president, I do agree that I think communism is absolutely the most pressing threat facing our country. And I'm glad that he sees that, because this country will die by suicide from electing socialists before Iran ever launches a nuclear weapon at us. So I do think we're on the right path with that. But it's going to be an age thing. The word communist is a dirty label to people over 60. Americans under 40, not so much.
I mean, we're just picking a new scare tactic as far as I'm concerned. This is getting insane. He's up there saying you're going to live in squalor with no food and no housing and no law and order. We have that for many people right now. That's why people are voting for Democratic Socialists, because they want government to look out for them again. They want affordable housing. They want to have groceries that they can afford. And I keep thinking about like that old expression that's like, capitalism, only a few can be rich. Communism, nobody can be rich. And democratic socialism is anyone can be rich, but no one should be poor. And I think that's what they're trying to go for here. And I think that's what we should be looking at, because they're really modeling themselves after the Nordic countries, Denmark, Sweden, those kind of places that have the highest ranked happiest country and citizens in the world. And I think there's a lot of young Americans particularly that are like, this doesn't work for me at all. I have a worse quality of living than my parents ever did. We are the first generation that are like that. what can we do differently? And this is what we could do differently.
Let me play what AOC said just tonight about this new line from the Republicans. Listen.
The one thing that we know is that the Republican Party's brand is fear. And they have to constantly churn what they want people to be afraid of. To be afraid of socialists, to be afraid of immigrants, to be afraid of women, to be afraid of... They constantly want Americans in fear of somebody. Because if you are not afraid of someone who is your neighbor, you're going to realize who's actually pickpocketing you.
Look, 7% of people who could vote in those congressional races voted. Wrap your brain around that. 93% of people who are eligible to vote did not vote. So saying that the message is resonating or it's not resonating, what's resonating is people aren't voting. People don't care. Now you could do early voting, right? I voted early because my son was playing baseball on the baseball field on Saturday. And I looked, oh, wow, I could just go in here and I voted. It's so easy. It took me 7 minutes to go vote. So we have made it very easy for people to go vote, but they've decided not to vote. So you can't, this is not a statistical analysis that you can rely upon about what message is resonating and what message is not resonating. When in 93%, I mean, the message is people don't care or they don't think their vote counts. But, you know, you can't say, whoa, it's a huge thing when it's 7%.
But this is not...
But we're talking about the three congressional races in New York. We're talking about Mamdani.
That democratic socialism has been on the scene. I mean, Bernie Sanders ran for president twice as a democratic socialist. AOC is a known democratic socialist. And
Bernie Sanders got nowhere. Right? I mean, he got nowhere.
I mean,
Joe Biden was
you can either look at it as he got nowhere, or he ran as a democratic socialist, and he basically was the runner-up in the Democratic primary.
He got shoved out.
So he went pretty far. He didn't go nowhere.
And democratic socialism hasn't gone anywhere because it comes with the ideas that people want, which is things like affordable housing, affordable childcare, paid family leave.
This
but
is
it
a
also comes
capitalistic
with abolishing
society.
That's true. This is a capitalistic society. And today, I was just looking at some polling research today, 67% of Americans say that they are more afraid of running out of food than death. And then we've had a 16% increase since President Trump has been in office. My point is this. If you don't want people to be curious about socialism, capitalism has to work a lot better. It's really, it's really.
I don't think President Trump would disagree with what you just said.
Well, guess what? Today, President Trump was out here talking about America will never be a socialist country. America will never be a communist country. When he just asked for $11 billion in subsidies for farmers because capitalism is killing American agriculture. His capitalistic war in the Mideast is not allowing fertilizer to get to American agriculture. So it's failing all around. It's killing people, right? And people are afraid and ready to do something else.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
People don't want socialism. That's exactly what you're saying.
They do want
They want
socialism, they just don't
capitalism,
know
but
it's
capitalism,
socialism.
we're living in late-stage capitalism, to use a
living
Karl
in
Marx
predatory
story. We're
capitalism.
living in
We're living in
late-stage
corporatism.
capitalism,
Predatory capitalism
where
is where we are
people
now.
feel like they can't have ownership in their society. Americans want to feel like they can own a part of their society. And too many Americans under 40, when the average age of the first-time home buyer is 40 years old, feel that they can't achieve
So let
ownership.
me just
And if
ask
they
you a
can't
question.
achieve ownership,
When Mayor
they'll be curious
Mamdani
about
says,
socialism.
we're freezing the rents, and if the landlords can't carry the buildings because the rents are frozen, he said, maybe we'll give the buildings to the tenants. You think that's the American way?
No, he diagnoses the correct problem with the wrong solution.
That sounds vaguely
I mean, that's what he
familiar.
said. He said, he goes, we'll give the buildings to the tenants.
Well,
not
look,
that they've earned them, not that they deserve
I mean,
it.
I do think, though, you know, you're making a policy dispute with Mamdani, which I think is totally fair. But when you look at the fact that all of that being said, and trust me, everything was thrown at him but the kitchen sink, he's still the most popular politician in New York right now.
Listen, he's still in his honeymoon period. It's been, and you're going to think I'm being facetious, but I'm not. The New York Knicks winning and this winning streak, and that he's a Knicks fan, has helped him tremendously. Here in New York, this is a national show, but in New York, he's been on the cover of every newspaper with the Knicks, and that has been wonderful for any mayor. Whether it was Giuliani with the Yankees or him with the Knicks, he's still in a honeymoon period. Let's see what happens.
What's helping him is that he's
I don't know what he's got.
delivering on his promises.
He's coming in. He's saying
freeze the
he can do
rents.
this.
He
and
delivered
does
on
it.
his comments. And you know who gets hurt when he freezes the rents? To some degree. To some degree, the tenants. You know why? Because you think the landlord's going to put in a new counter. You think the landlord's going to put in a new refrigerator. You think
he's
the
arguing that they're not going to do that.
Me?
He's arguing they're not doing that anyway.
But there's a percentage that is, and there's a percentage that's
he
not.
came in and he stopped slumlords from not doing things to buildings that they have avoided for years. He came in and he balanced the budget. He came in
didn't
and
balance the budget. Hold on, Kathy Hochul balanced the budget. He went to the governor.
He worked together with her and made. That's what politics is it not?
Eric Adams did that, as did Bill de Blasio, as did Bloomberg, as did Giuliani.
So
he didn't
you
do
think
anything unique except have to borrow money
I
from
just
the
want to
state.
play one more thing. This is from Trump. Remember, today he was speaking at this conservative Christian conference, and he frames this whole debate as not just a threat against capitalism, but a threat against Christianity. Listen.
These ruthless communists will attack all religions, but in particular Christianity.
This out?
I don't think so. I think that President Trump is actually touching on something that is very real there. There's been a relationship between capitalism and American Christianity for the longest time, right? And honestly, depending on how you're looking at it, both of those things have been decently dangerous to Black Americans. Black Americans were the capital that allowed capitalism to exist, right? And also suffered the forced adoption of Christianity as well. So those two things actually do have a through line. I think President Trump signals he throws red meat to his base, who sees those two things together, right? Their versions of Christianity don't want to give money to the poor. Their versions of Christianity don't want to take health care away from people. And that is what capitalism has been doing in America for the longest time as well. So I think he's hitting on something real.
I just want to say, though, I actually think it was American Christians that led part of the abolition movement against slavery. There were plenty of Christians who were leading the charge of liberating and ending slavery in this
I don't think
country.
anyone's
I
questioning
don't
the
draw
Christians.
that. I disagree with that.
My
And I
problem
think
is
many
that I think he's
feel very
using
strongly
Christians
about that.
again.
That they were
He's
very
using an
anti-slavery.
entire religion again to fear them into having their religion taken away, which they are in no danger of it happening, to make them more afraid. So if you're not afraid of communism, I'll give you being poor. If you're not afraid of that, I'll give you trans people. If you're not afraid of that, I'll say, we'll take your religion. And I think the thing is that there's so many Americans out here that just want basic things, right? We want like affordable health care, housing, clean water and air, safe streets, good schools, like all these things.
They don't want to abolish ICE, which a lot of democratic socialists want to do. And that's a position that 70% of Americans don't support. And Americans might be kind of interested
think you're right
in
with the
some of the
70% of
DSA.
that.
Oh, I'm right. Fact check me.
Sure, I will. That'd be great. Someone else fact checker.
We'll do that in the break. We do want to invite you over at home to join this debate. Head to cnn.com/Abby. You can weigh in on this conversation, and we will get to some of your comments at the end of tonight's show. But next for us here, J.D. Vance compares himself to Richard Nixon and says Watergate would be just a 12-hour news story in today's era. Plus, Gavin Newsom calls for a national billionaires tax while opposing one in his own state. We'll discuss. Tonight, J.D. Vance attempts to rewrite history, telling donors at the Nixon Library that he doesn't think the Watergate scandal was a big deal at all.
I think that his historical legacy is enjoying a bit of a renaissance, but I think deservedly so. As I joked with Robert backstage, if Watergate happened tomorrow, it would be like a 12-hour news story. Like, the idea that it would have taken down a presidency is crazy. And by the way, if you look at the story of how the deep state took down Richard Nixon, it's not all that different from what the same groups of people, the same institutions tried to do to Donald Trump in the first Trump administration. There is a parallel.
Just a quick history lesson for you. The Watergate scandal stemmed from a botched attempt authorized by Nixon aides to bug the DNC offices at the Watergate Hotel. After investigations by the press and Congress, we learned that One, Nixon was aware of the break-in. Two, he directed hush money payments to the burglars to cover it up. And three, he pressured the CIA to stop an FBI investigation into the matter. And of course, it revealed that Nixon was secretly recording his White House conversations. Is the point here that if you rehabilitate Nixon, who was also impeached, maybe you can rehabilitate Trump too, as well, because he's also been twice impeached?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for the vice president what the point he was trying to make. Look, there were things that President Nixon did during his presidency that were unique, right? He opened the door to China, and his Secretary of State was exceptional. He got us out of Vietnam. So there were many things that he did.
We could have been out of Vietnam before,
under Lyndon Johnson.
because of him.
Under the Democrat,
We weren't.
Lyndon Johnson, we could have gotten out, or under Kennedy. So there's
If
plenty,
Nixon hadn't
there's plenty of
kiboshed it,
people.
let's be
There's plenty of
honest.
people you could have talked to. Yeah, Lyndon Johnson could have pulled the plug right there after Kennedy got killed, but he chose not to.
But isn't that a different argument than what he's making?
I don't. Yeah,
he's
I don't
basically
agree.
saying.
It's
You're
sad,
saying
what
let's
he's
talk about
saying
the
is
good
sad.
things.
In my opinion,
he's saying that the bad things weren't really bad, and it was really just the deep state going after
You're
Nixon,
correct.
which is not true.
You're correct, and it's sad. I think one of the points that he's making is there's been so many things that have happened from the time of Nixon till the time of Trump. Bill Clinton was impeached, right? He lied under oath. Nixon was never accused of lying under oath. Nixon was never impeached. He left before he was impeached, but he was
accused of authorizing a burglary and paying hush money.
And he resigned.
And I mean,
he was accused of, just so I may,
those are all things that are more
Just to be clear, I didn't say I agree.
People
that
might not
lying
be
about
as
your
old
mistress.
as
I
you
didn't
and
say
I.
I didn't say I agreed that it would be a 12-hour news story.
But I
said
agree. It would be a 12-hour news story today. I do agree, because there are so many other crimes happening that it would
that's
be
why I said
that
it's sad.
obstruction of justice, abuse of power, and contempt of Congress, which is what he would have been
Hunter
impeached
Biden,
for.
Bill Clinton,
do not do that. Do not do that.
Obama
I'm
with
gonna
the
finish.
Russian collusion.
I'm going to finish talking.
You know,
I'm going to
there's
finish
plenty.
talking.
That's the sad
You
part.
stop talking. I'm going to finish talking. Okay, great.
Okay.
So here's the thing.
We're all in.
in.
Just to be
We're all
clear,
in
you
it.
interrupted him. He's interrupting
Nixon.
you. It'd be better if
Nixon,
none of that
Nixon
happened.
went down.
but
We're
go
both
ahead.
wearing our pink today, so we're just feisty little heartbeats. Listen, it will be a 12-hour news story today because a lot has changed since then. And I think it's not just the crimes that have happened. It's not just what went down with whatever president at whatever time. We also had a president back when Nixon was who had the good sense to step down before he was impeached. We had a Republican Party with the self-respect to get him to do it before he was impeached. We had an American press corps that would actually go out, discover the truth, print the truth, even if it was about the president, and not just say nothing because they wanted access or they wanted to write a book after.
How did the press corps do then? Give me a break. You want to talk about a press corps not holding power to account? How many people in the liberal mainstream media covered up? This is extensively documented for the Biden administration.
What's the
you want to
crime?
answer for that?
Caroline, what's the
What did he
crime
do?
that you're alleging
That
Biden
when
committed?
you are a journalist, you have an obligation.
No.
to the
What?
truth.
But you're
what
trying
did they
to make
cover?
a.
Ask the American people what the crime is.
No,
We had a commander
Hold
in
on a
chief.
second.
What did Biden do?
You're trying to make an analogy here. So what is the crime?
That the commander in chief was clearly unwell.
Right, compromised.
Compromised, and
okay.
everybody around him, including
Unwell.
people in power, and the media that is supposed
what
to
was
hold
the
power
ailment,
account.
Caroline? What was it?
Oh.
What was it?
I believe, and I
They've
say
been
this with a
writing
lot of
books about
compassion.
how
I say this with a lot of
compromised
compassion.
There's a
Joe Biden
difference.
We could
clearly
write
had
books
dementia.
about
and
there is
and
obviously
has been nowhere near
Arthur.
power,
You're a
and I say that with
lawyer.
a lot of compassion.
You're a lawyer, Arthur. There is a difference between criminal activity and people who say that a president should step down because they're getting too old.
No,
I'm not saying that Joe Biden should have stayed in the presidency. I'm just saying they are fundamentally different things.
Okay, but what she was saying was what the critique of the media and what the media covers that's true and not true. And what she's saying is the media didn't cover how Joe Biden's demise.
That the media appropriately covered Nixon's crimes.
Yes,
That's
I
what
did.
I'm
Okay,
saying.
that is
They
an
did.
appropriate use of the media.
Yeah.
They covered his crimes.
Woodward,
that
though,
is
that was
pat
historic.
on the back to Bob Woodward
Right.
and Bernstein.
But if we could,
But-
we have a crime that's way bigger, like Epstein, and no one is covering it. No one is talking
But
about it.
Epstein's
Nothing
not a
is still happening.
crime of the presidency.
Yes, it is. He's
How?
directly involved. We didn't
How
even
was
know
he
that there was a.
directly involved?
Wait,
Is-
hold
What
on.
do you mean, how
hold
was
on.
he directly
I will
involved?
say,
Come
listen, I will
on.
say
There's no
this about
evidence.
on the Epstein piece. We don't know
Thank
that the
you.
president was involved
Thank
in
you.
any
She's the boss.
crimes
She said what-
related to Epstein.
But we do know he's
so,
in there.
so I
No,
do
Abby
think
said
that
we don't know.
again, we're talking about a former president who I think history has appropriately assessed his legacy, his failings. At the time, his own party thought that he had gone too far and said, you need to step down. And J.D. Vance's desire to rehabilitate that, he's not alone in that, by the way. This has been a project from some on the right for a long time. But to what end? What are we trying to say about what is appropriate for the presidency by doing that?
I have no idea. I'll never try to speak for J.D. Vance. I think J.D. Vance is actually quite smart. He went to Yale. He knows what he's doing by making like trying to beautify Nixon's presidency. One thing I can say from watching that is that, like, in a lot of ways, I actually do agree that President Trump is like Nixon because, Nixon was awful. Nixon was racist. I remember Nixon in an audio tape with Reagan laughing about black people being described as monkeys. I remember President Trump posting a video of the former President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle Obama as monkeys. So I know they have similarities there that are just like stark. But I don't know what J.D. Vance was trying to say there. I don't know what he was trying to do.
But he was also at the Nixon Library, wasn't he, Abby, when he made those remarks? So, of course, what do you think? He's going to badmouth Nixon when he's at the Nixon Library?
He could just think, Arthur, I'm going to compliment you. I think
we're all cool with that.
Appropriately cited things that you can pull out of Nixon's legacy and say, let's talk about these things, right? He had a choice in that moment. What do we talk about when we talk about Richard Nixon? Do we talk about his relationship with China? Do we talk about the policy decisions that he made? Or do we talk about the fact that the deep state went after him? He chose the deep state and made an analogy between himself and the current president and the
record, I did not agree with that statement, for the record.
That's what's amazing.
You know, when you talk about the racist stuff, one of my favorite presidents, Bill Clinton, but he said horrible things about Italians. Horribly. Called Mario Cuomo a mafioso. So, you know.
So it's all good.
I don't know. I didn't say it's all good.
I don't know what we're doing with that.
No. How do you feel about Bill Clinton caught on time calling Mario Cuomo a mafioso?
It's genuinely not the point.
When he was the sitting governor of New York State.
But why bully him?
And then I'm not bullying him. I ain't bullying Josh. Maybe in the barber's chair.
I don't think
I don't think I'm bullying. At least he knows.
Okay, let me let Josh respond, and then we'll go.
I don't even know where you're going with that point.
I'm talking about presidents say stupid, horrible things.
And President Trump has said a lot of them.
And so is President Clinton.
Probably the most of them. And Nixon ended his career with 22% approval rating, which is the lowest ever. President Trump is tied for the second lowest ever at 34%.
And I will say that even to this day, just 19% of Republicans would describe Nixon as having an outstanding presidency. So I'm not sure what island J.D. Vance wants to be on that one. Speaking of things that you should not say out loud, our new show, Confessions and Obsessions, is now streaming. Right now, I sit with a group of familiar faces, and they reveal things that they want to get off their chest and a few things they cannot stop thinking about. Check it out at cnn.com/confessions and obsessions or on the CNN app. Next for us, though, Gavin Newsom versus Gavin Newsom. What he thinks is a good idea for the country, but not for his state. Tonight, California's Governor Gavin Newsom is calling for a national tax on the ultra-wealthy as he weighs a potential 2028 presidential run.
The system the American founders built, well, was designed to prevent the concentration of power in a few hands. But we've allowed that concentration to happen anyway, slowly and in plain sight over the course of decades and decades. But we can reverse it. We can reverse it together. It's time to democratize the American economy to save our democracy.
But come November, voters in his home state are going to decide whether or not to impose a similar one-time 5% tax on billionaires. But Newsom says he will not support that initiative. He argues the California plan will drive businesses out of the state and that revenue would not be spread around enough. Lee, you're a Californian.
Yep.
Is it political opportunism for Gavin Newsom to suddenly come out in favor of a wealth tax when he opposes it at home?
I think you could make that argument, but that's not the argument I would make. I would say that the thing about what's on our ballot, which is a 5% tax on anyone over $1 billion, and then it gets divided up into certain places. What his argument is that's not enough, and it's not going to go far enough. What he's talking about for the entire country, which I prefer anyway, instead of doing it on a state-by-state basis, is because the argument people always make with Mamdani when he came in, with Gavin in California, is that people will leave. They will leave. The rich people will leave if they're taxed this much. Now, I'm of the inclination to say, okay, go, bye-bye. But if that is the argument, if you make the entire country the same and you go over the ultra, so you're making the tax rates now not just so they serve the ultra rich, not just so they serve a certain class of people, a true minimum tax rate where you change inheritance tax and you change what we do with the tax codes, including the corporate tax rate, and you make sure the corporate tax rates are higher. This is a completely different argument than just a 5% on billionaires.
He also made the argument about money fleeing when it comes to California. Listen to this.
But at a national level, we're competing with 50 states. Capital flows and move, that's real. It's not imagined. It's very, very real.
I mean, capital also could flow across borders too. So it's not as if like a national tax would eliminate the idea of people, rich people, moving from one place to another to avoid being taxed on their, by the way, unrealized assets, which is what this is largely about.
Yeah. So I was sitting with a billionaire in Europe, and a table just like this, his yacht's there, his helicopter's there, there's a group just like this, and he asked all the Americans, what's the most pressing problem facing your country? And everyone said China and social media and political polarization. And he said, no, the most pressing problem facing your country is the growing gap between the haves and have-nots. And he's correctly diagnosed the problem. But Gavin Newsom saying you're going to tax billionaires is the wrong solution. Billionaires have the most economic mobility out of anybody. They can do exactly just that. Oh, the U.S. tax code isn't favorable to me anymore? All right, cool. I'll just leave. I could name 3 more policies that Gavin Newsom could name, but he won't because he's a coward, that would actually help create wealth and create a thriving middle class in America, which is what we need to do. 1, we could keep up with mass deportations. I mean, illegal immigrants compete and depreciate the wages of the American working class, making it harder for them to afford life, to have ownership, to get into the stock market, to have capital.
Entirely
The
untrue.
two-income
Caroline, a lot, that is a highly
untrue, and it has not been
disputable
We could
proven
forgive
at all.
student loan
statistic,
debt.
You
We have
cannot,
so many
absolutely
people in
cannot
our
make that
country
argument.
who are saddled with student loan debt for degrees that are now worthless. We should forgive that student loan debt. We're not going to create more wealth by taxing billionaires, and that's what we need to focus on, is creating wealth.
Just out of curiosity, so when Biden forgave the student loan debt, you were good with that?
Absolutely. I would love to see Republicans embrace that.
All right.
I'm serious.
So,
Middle class people, we should do that.
all right, wealth tax. I mean, again, I'm just wondering the timing of this. It's coming a couple of days after these Democratic Socialists win these elections. Gavin Newsom wants to run for president. He is reading the tea leaves, and the tea leaves say kind of what Caroline's saying, which is that people are fed up with rich people being stupidly rich, and they continue to be poor. And when you look at the taxes paid by the top share of the population versus how much wealth they have, look at this chart. You don't even need to be great at charts to see what's going on here. The wealthy, their wealth has far outstripped their share of taxes over the last several decades. So that's the reality that most people, they don't know the numbers, but they're living this reality where they just see rich people getting really rich, and their taxes are going up this much, a little smidge.
I know, but Abby,
and
in New York City,
their
I know, but
lifestyles are not improving.
Legos. Okay, just let them go. Just let them go. They pay I think they pay 49%. The 1% pays like 50% of the taxes. So if they leave, it's not very good for the sanitation department, for the fire department, for the Department of Education. We need them to stay here. We need their income. With that being said, look, we have a tax system that's incremental, right? If you make $30,000, you only pay a small amount of tax. If you pay over $100,000, a little bit more. $250,000, you pay a little bit more. Okay, so if you pay $1 billion, if you make $1 billion, God bless you, you should pay a little bit more. I have no problem with billionaires paying a little bit more.
But you know the problem is that that's not how it works when you get to that level of wealth.
Yeah.
When you get to that level of wealth,
well,
what I'm saying is that when you get to that level of wealth, here's the conundrum. Here's the conundrum that we're in as a country. When you get to that level of wealth, you're not making really any money on paper.
Correct.
That's correct.
You might be making $1,000, right?
As you said, it's
and what they're doing, they have assets and they take loans against their assets. Those loans are untaxed. It's free money.
Correct.
And I will say the one thing about this proposal from Gavin Newsom is that it does talk about ending that tax-free lifestyle loophole, meaning you take a loan against your assets in stock, and the IRS has nothing to do with it. That's just free cash to you. Here's Ro Khanna explaining that part of the proposal and why it's so popular, even among the wealthy. Listen.
Taxing the loans on assets is something that the tech oligarchs themselves have proposed. You ask any of these tech billionaires, I know them, they say, well, why don't you just tax the loans on assets? Why? Because that will raise a fraction of the revenue of an actual wealth tax, the kind that Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or I have proposed.
I mean, that seems like something a lot of people can get behind.
I think a lot of people can get behind it. I think that the majority of people are at their wits' end with this. You were just saying this earlier. 77% of Americans think that the billionaires should get taxed more, and that's like 65% of Republicans. You know it's bad when you got conservative Republicans saying that this is something that they need to get on. So I think absolutely people can get behind this. People have to get behind this. Billionaires are stalling the American economy, and sitting on that much wealth is violent. And a billionaire can't buy $1 billion worth of groceries.
I will also say that economists and experts are genuinely concerned that if we don't do something about the inheritance tax loopholes that we have right now, we are going to make a permanent aristocracy in this country that cannot lose their wealth, that we are going to have such a divide if we let it within the next 10 to 20 years, let one generation give $123 trillion to the next generation,
which is accumulated wealth, all the stock trading he's done in Congress.
As well.
Let's focus on that's way more popular with the
who
American
is rich.
people than taxing
It is too much to be able to give all your children, to not have to pay taxes on the things that you, if I want to buy a house.
It's 35% tax.
No,
in the
they do not pay taxes the way the rest of us regular old folks pay taxes. They just don't. And to make that argument is
you're not solving the wealth.
I mean, the crucial piece is that only above a certain amount of wealth. I think it's like $15 million or something like that. So that's what she's talking about. Yes, there are taxes on inheritances, but only above a certain amount, and there are lots of ways
to get around it.
Lots of ways to get around it.
In New York, we have city tax and state tax besides the federal tax.
Next for us, the White House is giving fancy goodie bags to white South African refugees, and they're about to deport, at the same time that this is happening, thousands of Haitian refugees. We'll discuss next.
अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ गए जो दिन सहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा बेसर्द लगता है दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दूर भरता है अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं ये जो दिन सुहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा सर्द लगता है दिल का हर एक कोना बहुत ही दर्द भरता है मेरे साए भी मुझसे अब जुदा होने को कहते हैं तुझे खोने की राहों में ये आंसू बहने लगते कहाँ जाऊं कहाँ ढूंढूं मेरा वो साजो सामा तो मेरी हर एक तमन्ना तू मेरी रूह का मकान तू लकीरों में नहीं लिखा जो तुमने ख्वाब देखा था वफा की इस कहानी में फकत एक गम ही लिखा था सितारों से भी पूछता है पता तेरा कहाँ होगा मगर खामोश है दुनिया कहाँ मेरा जहाँ होगा बस एक बार मुड़ के देख ले मेरी बेबसी की सूरत मुझे है आज भी तेरी वफा की सख्त जरूरत साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर